Hi, my name is Nelson Bennet, and I am a professor of anatomy and physiology here at Montgomery College in Tacoma Park. Today we're going to be looking at the muscles that move the lower appendages. And I will be giving a demonstration of the movements in a separate video from this one. But it's going to be really important for you guys to know the distinction, or remind yourselves of the distinction between what is your thigh and what is your leg, because that will help you understand the muscles. In anatomy, this is always your thigh, and this is always your leg. This is never the leg in anatomy, so be sure that you keep that straight. So basically what I'm going to do is we're going to start working on the top of the model and work our way down. And I will tell you what the muscles do and point them out to you, and then we'll have a quick review. So let's actually start with the posterior of the model, and I will start with these muscles way up here, and these muscles are basically going to extend the thigh. When you extend the thigh, you're going to be moving your thigh backwards, okay? And this muscle right here is called the gluteus maximus. It's the major muscle that extends your thigh, otherwise known as your butt muscle. But this is the gluteus maximus, and it's a big, powerful muscle that extends the thigh. And this muscle is going to be used quite a bit when you're going up and down the stairs. So as I said, the gluteus maximus is the major muscle that is used to extend your thigh. And when you extend your thigh, you're essentially moving your thigh backwards from the standing position. Or you can also say that your thigh is extended when you're in the regular standing position. So to see what muscles do the opposite of the gluteus maximus, we would have to turn the model around and look on the front. Muscles that do the opposite action of each other are called antagonists. These muscles at the very top are the ones that actually flex your hip or your thigh. Flexing your hip or flexing your thigh are essentially the same thing. And there's two muscles that flex the hip. Up here, this long one is called the psoas major. Psoas is spelled with a P, but you do not pronounce the P. The psoas major is right next to this muscle, which is flatter, and this is called the iliacus. If you remember from the skeletal system, this piece of bone up here is called the iliac crest, and this muscle is called the iliacus because it attaches to the iliac crest. These two muscles come together to form a muscle called the iliopsoas, and it's responsible for flexing your thigh. So when you flex your thigh, you're actually moving your thigh forward or upward as if you were going to be kicking a football or a soccer ball with a very straight thigh and leg. So again, just to review, we have the thigh or hip flexors up here, the iliacus with the psoas right next to it, and the muscles that actually extend the thigh or the hip is basically just this really big one muscle in the back called the gluteus maximus. So we've covered flexing and extending the thigh. Let's talk about or adducting the thigh. When you actually move your thigh out sideways, that's called abducting the thigh. And when you bring your thigh towards your body again, towards the middle, that's called adducting. So let's talk about abducting the thigh. Two muscles that abduct the thigh are on the outside of the thigh right here. The first one is actually right above the gluteus maximus, and that's called the gluteus medius. So don't get confused by the names. Just because it has the name gluteus in it doesn't mean it does the same thing. So as I said, the gluteus maximus, what we said before, that extends the thigh. But the gluteus medius abducts the thigh, which is moving your thigh sideways. And right near it is another muscle that also does the same thing, abducts your thigh or moves it sideways, and this muscle is called the tensor fascia latae. So two muscles abduct the thigh or move the thigh sideways away from your body. The gluteus medius right here, which is above the maximus, and the tensor fascia latae. To find muscles now that abduct the thigh, which means bringing your thigh towards your body from the side, we need to look on the medial side of this model, and there are going to be three major muscles that do that. These are all called adductor, or they belong to an adductor group. So let's actually start with the easiest one. If you notice here on the medial side of the model, there is a very long, straight muscle that goes up and down right in the middle of the inside of your thigh. That's called the gracilis, and it helps to adduct the thigh, which is to bring the thigh closer to your body. Just in front of the gracilis is a muscle called the adductor longus, does the same thing, and just behind the gracilis is a muscle called the adductor magnus, does the same thing. So three muscles help to adduct your thigh, which means bringing the thigh from the side towards the middle of the body. The gracilis in the middle, the adductor longus in front, and the adductor magnus in the back. So if we compare the adductors to the abductors, two abductors on the outside, three adductors on the inside. So those are essentially the muscles that are helping to move the thigh away or towards the body if you're moving it laterally or medially. Okay, moving right along. We're going to move to this really long muscle that we see here on the front of the thigh. It actually wraps around the thigh from the front and goes medially here. This is the longest muscle in the body. It's very thin, very long. It's called the sartorius, sometimes referred to as the tailor's muscle. You use this muscle to actually rotate your thigh. When would you rotate your thigh? You would rotate your thigh if you're doing yoga and sitting in the lotus position, or you would rotate your thigh maybe if you stepped on a piece of gum and you're lifting your foot up off the ground to check the bottom of your foot. You would have to rotate your thigh. This muscle helps you do it. Helps you to rotate your thigh. It also is a very weak hip flexor as well, but its main action is to rotate the thigh. Okay, so those are all the muscles that help to move the thigh. Now we're going to go and look at the muscles that actually move the leg. The muscles that move the leg, don't forget your leg is down here. The muscles that all move the leg are located here. And there's two things you can pretty much do with your leg. You can either extend the leg, like when you're kicking a football, you would extend the leg, or you can flex the leg, which is to bend your knee backwards. Let's start with the muscles that extend the leg. They're going to be located on the front, and there's four of them. Together, you've probably heard of this group of muscles, the four muscles on the front that help you to extend your leg, as I said, like if you're kicking a ball. And together, the four muscles are called the quadriceps. So let's look at them individually. And we'll start with the easiest one. In the front, in the middle, there's a muscle called the rectus femoris. Whenever you see rectus in front of a muscle's name, that means it's a straight muscle. So the rectus femoris is here. On the outside, we have a muscle called the vastus lateralis. And on the inside, we have a muscle called the vastus medialis right here. So rectus femoris, vastus lateralis, vastus medialis. But I said there were actually four. So you might be asking yourself, where's the fourth one? Well, the fourth one, to see the fourth one, I think I need to carefully remove a few things here, because the fourth muscle is underneath the rectus femoris. So let's just gently remove that. And if I remove the sartorius, and if I take off the rectus femoris, I can see a muscle underneath the rectus femoris. This muscle, which is deep to the rectus femoris, is called the vastus intermedius. So the four muscles of the quadriceps that help you to extend your leg would be the rectus femoris in the front, the vastus lateralis on the side, the vastus medialis on this side, and the vastus intermedius directly underneath the rectus femoris. Those four muscles together make up what we call the quadriceps. In the back of the model are the muscles that help you to flex your leg. Flex your leg is bending your knee or bending the leg backwards. And there's three muscles that do that. The three muscles that help you to flex your leg are collectively known as your hamstrings. Many of you have probably heard about your hamstrings from reading about sports. Let's start with the lateral side. Over here is a large muscle on the lateral side of the thigh, helps you to flex your leg. This muscle is called the biceps femoris. And on this side, on the medial side, we have two muscles that help you to flex the leg. There's one on top, which we call superficial, and there's one underneath, which would be the deep one. The one on top is called the semitendinosus, and the one deep to it, peeking out the sides, you can see it peeking out both sides here, is called the semimembranosus. So three muscles that help you to flex your leg. On this side is the biceps femoris, on this side is the superficial semitendinosus, and underneath the deeper semimembranosus. So again, to review, muscles that help you to move your leg are going to be the three muscles of the hamstring in the back and the four muscles of the quadriceps in the front. And finally, we're going to get to the muscles that move the foot. Main muscles that move the foot are either going to help you point your foot up. Pointing your foot up is called dorsiflexion, and pointing your foot downward is called plantar flexion. The muscles that help you to dorsiflex, there's really only one we're going to worry about, and that one is right here. This one's right next to the tibia bone, so we call this the tibialis anterior, and this is going to be responsible for pointing your foot upwards, which we call dorsiflexion. Actually, if you feel your tibia bone and move just to the side of it and put your finger on that muscle and bend your foot up, you can feel it working. So the tibialis anterior muscle is right next to the tibia bone, and that's going to help you to dorsiflex the foot or point your foot upward. If we go to the back, we can find two major muscles that are going to help you to point your foot downward. And the first is this really big meaty muscle on the back of your calf. Makes up most of your calf. This big meaty muscle is called the gastrocnemius. The gastrocnemius. Many people don't know this, but the gastrocnemius is the second most important muscle in your body aside from your heart for pumping blood. And it's going to help, when you use this muscle, it's going to help you pump the blood from your leg and help get it up to take it back to the heart. So the gastrocnemius, working the gastrocnemius and going for walks is going to be really important for getting your blood pumping. So the gastrocnemius is this big muscle here on the back. Underneath the gastrocnemius is a deeper muscle called the soleus. The soleus also helps you to plantar flex your foot, which is pointing the foot in a downward direction. So the gastrocnemius on top, which is this entire muscle, and then the soleus that we see underneath it, those two muscles work together to help you plantar flex the foot. Sure. This is the Achilles tendon, which is shared by both the gastrocnemius and the soleus muscle, and it attaches to the heel bone, otherwise known as your calcaneus bone, as the tendon wraps around here under the foot. Psoas major, adductor magnus, Gracilis, iliacus, Vastus lateralis, rectus femoris, Vastus medialis, Gastrocnemius, Soleus, tibialis anterior, Gluteus medius, gluteus maximus, adductor magnus, semitendinosus, biceps femoris, iliotibial tract, semimembranosus, sartorius, gastrocnemius, Soleus, psoas major, iliacus, tensor fascia latae, sartorius, adductor magnus, Gracilis, rectus femoris, vastus lateralis, vastus medialis, quadriceps, rectus femoris, vastus medialis, vastus lateralis, vastus intermedius, gluteus medius, gluteus maximus, tensor fascia latae, rectus femoris, vastus lateralis, biceps femoris, iliotibial tract, gluteus medius, gluteus maximus, gracilis, adductor magnus, semimembranosus, biceps femoris, iliotibial tract, semitendinosus, semimembranosus, psoas major, adductor magnus, gracilis, adductor longus, sartorius, semimembranosus, vastus medialis, Gastrocnemius, tibialis anterior, Soleus, fibularis longus. Gastrocnemius, Soleus, fibularis longus.